When you look back in hindsight, everything is 2020. In hindsight, we make mistakes, we're learning from it. In hindsight, yesterday and your tomorrow. In hindsight, is so much clearer now.
Have you ever hit rock bottom and wondered if you could rise above it? You know what? I do this every time. I ask you, do you have questions? Or I ask my guests, do they have any questions? I have a question. Is it Palmieri?
Palmieri. Yep, perfect.
Palmieri. And I'm going to leave that in because I do it all the time and I need to stop. And that's how you learn, right? Through repetition. I think you talk about that.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
All right. So Kevin say one more time, Palmieri.
Yes.
All right. CSO, founder and host of Next Level University, knows what it feels like to be at his lowest point. Yet, it's also where he found his greatest transformation. After a brush with suicide in his mid-20s, Kevin made the powerful decision to go all in on his dreams of becoming a full-time podcaster and entrepreneur. Now, as the host of a global top 100 self-improvement podcast that reaches millions worldwide, he's on a mission to teach others how to build positive, resilient mindsets. And in this episode, Kevin hopefully will share his journey from rock bottom to success and reveal what it really takes to create a life of fulfillment and growth. Kevin, I put a lot on your shoulders right there.
Lee, I've been lifting heavy in the gym. I'm ready. Put it on my shoulders and we'll see if we can deliver it together. That's the goal, right?
I know. I tell you what, I see you and Alan in y'all's pictures. Every time there's a photo of you, you guys are getting bigger and bigger. So
we're trying. We're trying. Let me tell you, it's been harder. There was a lot of people that said as you get older, it gets harder to stay in shape, and they were right in retrospect.
Yeah, I mean, I look at my arms; they got all tiny. So I try, and my stomach continues to get bigger. So
it's
I won't
funny.
stand
It's
up.
funny how that works, Lee. It's funny how that works.
First of all, this is Hindsight, the podcast. And, I do want to focus more on mindset today. What mindset can do to you, how you can control it. But before we even get started, I alluded to some points in the intro. And I just want you to just give us just a little bit about yourself and maybe some of the struggles that you had to overcome during your journey.
Yeah. So I always give context. I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. Didn't know my dad, didn't meet my dad with the understanding that he was my dad until I was 27. Obviously, that plays a role in a young man's life, so I'm happy to dive into that if we want to go deeper in the mindset beneath that. Lower middle class, didn't have a lot of money, talked often about how we weren't going to be able to pay rent. That's always something I remember and I will never forget. Outside of that, my childhood was quote unquote normal, whatever you want to consider normal. Where things really started to shift for me, Lee, was in high school. I knew I didn't want to go to college. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and I just couldn't justify paying $20,000 to try to figure it out. Just didn't make any sense to me. Right. So I got a job at the local gas station. That was my first job. And then I just job hopped for the next, 6 years. I worked at a gas station. I worked at a hospital overnights, cleaning bathrooms and floors. Truck driver, forklift operator, construction, tiling, HVAC, on-call firefighter for a very short amount of time, just jumping from thing to thing. Eventually, I got a job in an industry called weatherization, and I went from making like $15 an hour to anywhere from $60 to $120 an hour. Yeah. I was convinced, Lee, I did it. Here we are. I'm successful now. This is it. Finally, I did it. So if you looked at me when I was in my mid-20s, 24, 25, I had this really high-paying job. My girlfriend at the time was a model. I was getting ready to compete in a bodybuilding show. So if you think I'm in good shape now, I was in much better shape then.
Yeah.
Sports car, new apartment, great friends, all the stuff. Internally, though, I was miserable. And I was extremely unfulfilled. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was self-conscious. I had low self-belief, low self-worth. Girlfriend ended up leaving me. I convinced myself that the only way to fix my problems was to make more money. So I went and achieved more. And then I still found myself sitting on the edge of the bed contemplating suicide that next year. left all of that behind in 2018 to do this journey of full-time podcasting. And here we are 7 years later, and now I get to do this every day, and we look quote unquote successful from the outside, but obviously there's always stuff going on internally.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll tell you what, there's not a lot to unpack, but you mentioned, a lot of people, I'm assuming, go through this where you have an idea in your mind of what success looks like. And typically it's some sort of power, a lot of money, nice things. How did you go about, so you just flip, you said I had this and then I just switched to this, right? What was the switch? What was the aha? What was the, let me stop chasing this money, let me stop chasing these things? Like, what was the light switch that turned on to make you go and chase your purpose, I believe?
Yeah. So when I opened my final pay stub, so the year I made the most money, my goal was to make $100,000. It's like, if I could make $100,000, I would be quote unquote successful. Made $100,000. And when I was opening my final pay stub and looking and realizing that I didn't feel any different, I remember thinking to myself, for most of my life, I have lived unconsciously. I don't know how I've gotten to where I am, and I don't know if I decided or if I just ended up here, and I don't know why I decided if I did. The opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. I started a podcast in 2017 called the Hyperconscious Podcast. That became the passion, that became the purpose, and essentially that became the obsession. So when I ended up leaving my job, that's when things really transferred for me, because I remember I was walking around the house one day and I was the brokest I had been in a long time. I was as single as you could possibly be. But to your point, I felt fulfillment. I felt purpose. I felt passion, and I felt like I was doing something that was just way bigger than me for the first time ever. So I went from having a lot of external success and no internal fulfillment to going and having a ton of internal fulfillment and very little external success. But I figured, well, if I can find a way to be successful while doing this fulfilling work, that's going to be the best life ever. So it was a really weird transition. But I think the shortest answer is I felt fulfillment for the first time. And I realized that if I could live a life that had fulfillment consistently, everything else would be a little bit easier and definitely way better.
What did your rock bottom look like?
So the challenging part is my initial rock bottom was when my girlfriend left me. So when she left me, work slowed down. So I was struggling financially again, unfortunately. I had an eating disorder after my bodybuilding show. My mental health was in the toilet. She literally, when she sat me down and told me she was leaving, she said, I was going to leave you last month, but I was afraid you might kill yourself. And it was like, how did I get so low? So that was my initial rock bottom. My rock bottom basement moment was that next year where I had just locked myself into this reputation and the pressure that I had built for myself and convinced myself that I was lucky to be where I was and I could never replicate that level of success. And sitting on the edge of a bed thinking to myself, if I just wasn't here, I wouldn't have to solve any of these issues that I feel like I can't solve. So that was the hard part, is rock bottom. I think we all, not all of us, but if you're out there and you've hit rock bottom, I think the difference between continuing to dig and building a staircase is understanding the lesson that rock bottom is trying to teach you. Unfortunately, Lee, I did not understand the lesson the first time. I did get it the second time, though.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you because you mentioned about rock bottom having a basement, so you've definitely explained that.
I appreciate it.
And I encourage people to never say it can't get any worse.
Oh, it can. Yeah,
don't put it in the universe.
If you keep digging, if there's dirt there and you keep digging, there's lower you can go. It's up to us to stop it, right?
Absolutely, I like it. Hey, look. So you now do podcasting full time. So as someone who hosts a podcast that impacts millions of people, like, what role has the consistency played in your personal and professional transformation? So consistency in the podcasting, what you do, how does that play a role?
obviously it's very hard to win at anything without consistency, right? If I'm willing to do 7 episodes a week forever and you're willing to do an episode when you feel like it, I think we know who we bet on, right? We bet on the person who just shows up and runs the system. But at a deeper level, when you do something consistently, it starts to become part of your identity. It starts to become part of your community. It starts to become part of what your standards are for yourself. So in the beginning, we decided we were going to be consistent, but I didn't understand that that was eventually going to be, it's a part of my identity now where I identify as somebody who is super consistent. Now I can kind of do whatever I want within reason very consistently because in my mind, I'm capable of doing it and I have the proof. So yeah, it's become everything. It's the reason we are where we are today. And it's not just consistently showing up. It's consistently showing up. It's consistently improving. It's consistently reviewing. It's consistently finding perspective. I think when we hear the word consistently or consistency, we think, okay, show up and do. There's a lot that goes into a proper practice of consistency. So it's not just the act of doing, it's the act of improving, it's the act of reflecting, it's the act of getting feedback. So yeah, it really is. It's given us a really unique advantage, I think. And all the benefits I have from this journey are based on the fact that I've just done it longer and more consistently than the old version of me did.
Right. I like that reflecting. You know, I talk about that a lot because, you do things and I may talk to you and I may ask you a question and you may take it the wrong way. So I need to reflect on that. I can't be like, hey, Kevin's a jerk. You know what I'm saying? Just jump right to it, right? How can I, because I didn't mean for him to take it that way. How do I do this so the next time I'm asking a guest or I'm asking someone or I'm just having a conversation that this message goes the way I intended? It's effective communication, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just in my day-to-day, you ask me, what is it that I do? I got a team of people that I work with. And sometimes the communication just doesn't work. It's not effective. And what helps me is to, show up, do, reflect. You feel me? How do I get better? And I get better by reflecting. And I tell my team, do the same thing. Don't worry about if you make a mistake. I heard someone had a great quote, fail faster. You know what I mean? Because we all fail. Fail faster, get to the good part. So, and I believe reflecting is a good practice. You should be consistently reflecting on things, right, in order to get better, not to just stay in the past.
Yeah.
I know this is hindsight, but not to stay in the past. You know what I mean?
Well, I think you and I have a unique advantage in the fact that you can go back and see where you were last month by listening or watching the podcast. I always suggest this to people because, again, one of the hacks so recently, I think it was a couple weeks ago, I was having a rough day. And to your point, anytime I'm flying high emotionally or I am just dragging butt, I go and reflect on old content. I went back and watched our 1000th episode. I wasn't that good, Lee, compared to where I am today. But when I was there, I felt like I was the best I could be.
Yeah.
In order to get perspective, you need a starting point and you need an anchor point. And I think for a lot of us, if you're out there right now, I think this would be a really good practice. Sit down, take out a notebook, take out a camera, take out an audio recorder. iPhones have them. I think Androids have them. And literally just hit record and say, okay, today is blank date. When it comes to my health, this is how I feel, right? Mental, emotional, spiritual health, this is how I feel. Physical health. When it comes to my wealth and money, this is how I feel. These are my struggles. These are my wins. And then when it comes to love, this is how I feel. Check in a month. And if the trend line is moving in the right direction, that's progress, even though it doesn't feel like it. I think that's one of the most beneficial pieces of advice I could ever give to anybody, just because I have so much feedback I can reflect on, and most people just don't.
Yeah. That is actually pretty cool. Especially,
you sound surprised, Lee.
No, it's not surprise. It's just a great technique. We have these things because the thing is, when you're dealing with you, it's all the same, right? You know what I mean? So like you look in the mirror, and I've put on some weight since I've gotten out of the military, but I still look like me,
Right.
to me. But if I were to take a look at the photos back when I was in the military, I'd look totally different. You feel me? So I think, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, because if you gain 10 pounds over 3 months, you're looking at yourself in the mirror today versus yesterday. And then tomorrow versus today. And there's just not enough contrast. There's just not enough contrast. But when you go back and you look at 3 years ago, you're gonna look different. It's either in a positive way or a negative way or a constructive way or destructive way, depending on how you want to label it. So yeah, that's why it's so hard, because from day to day, progress is invisible. I recorded 4 podcast episodes yesterday. I am no measurably better today. I might actually be worse if I'm off a little bit. I mean, it's very possible.
Yeah.
But if we go back and look a year ago, I'm telling you, the content was garbage. It wasn't nearly as good as it can be today, because I wasn't as good as I could be today. And I think that's just it's a very interesting perspective for sure.
I like that. I remember I wrote some stories. I still write. I'm gonna write a little bit, right? I told you I was trying to write a book.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to write short stories. And I started probably when I was, I went to a creative writing class in Maryland, University of Maryland. And the first feedback I got from someone outside of me was my teacher, like, hey, you need to get something published, right? Because it's really good. So then I stopped for years, and I had some on this old this old hard drive on an old computer, right? And I plugged it in and I started reading. I was like, Jesus, I wrote these? It was like 10 years later, you know what I mean? And so to your point, having that anchor, having that start point, having that anchor, and having this right now, this is who I am right now, is important. I mean, it really is. If you want to gauge yourself, if you want to understand who you are, if you want to understand your trajectory, to your point, and if you're progressing or if you're not progressing.
Yeah.
So just take a moment out. I mean, because a lot of times we're on cruise control, we're on autopilot, and we just respond to things based off of stimuli or past experiences, and we don't really investigate why we do it. And that's part of the brain. It's part of keeping us alive in survival mode and not having to think about everything and being scared of everything, right? It's part of that. But I like that. I like that. I got my recorder now. I just bought something from Amazon. There's a little piece, you put it on the bottom of your phone, and it's got a talk to text app on it. So I'm jumping in right on that today. So thank you, my friend.
Indeed,
always.
Indeed. Let me know how it goes. And I challenge anybody watching or listening, do your own unique version of that. I'm telling you, if you look back, you're either going to be excited or disappointed, most likely. It's like, oh wow, I've come a long way, or I didn't get as far as I wanted. Feedback is important. You either get feedback along the way, or you get it all at once at the end, and that's when it's really painful.
Yeah, and another thing I encourage you: don't be afraid of the feedback. Invite the feedback. It can be from that recording. It could be from someone who's giving you feedback. Right? Don't be afraid of the feedback, because if people give you constructive, real feedback, it's because they're betting on your success. Right? They're invested in you being successful. You're invested in them being successful. And I mean, this can be family, this can be friends, this can be coworkers, it can be anybody, right? So just hear it. Don't always jump to the defensive. Hey, you're putting on a little weight, Lee. What do you mean? Don't jump to the defensive. Like, think, all right, that's probably good. I'm getting older. I don't need to put on too much weight. I need to pump it down just for health reasons, So don't be afraid of feedback. That's just my 2 cents.
I agree. I'm fully in agreement with you there.
Yeah. Hey, do you think success is possible without struggle?
I think the level of success you aspire to is going to determine how much struggle you need, right? So I think we live in a weird time where there's a lot of people telling you that you can be like the best in the world at something easily, and that just is not true. If that was the case, we would all be the best in the world at the thing we want to be the best in the world at. So I would say when you're sitting down and you're deciding what you want to accomplish, assume and understand that the higher you want to climb, the harder the journey is going to be, right? There's a reason Mount Everest is the mountain that everybody's trying to climb. It's the highest mountain. It's one of the hardest mountains to climb, but it's also one of the most dangerous mountains to climb, right? So yeah, I think it's going to be challenging no matter what, but the level of challenge is directly connected to the level that you're trying to grow to, is what I would say.
Yeah. So fail faster.
I'm all for it. Yeah, fail faster, fail forward. But
yeah,
I think this is one of the things that I've really leaned into.
Okay.
I don't really care what goal somebody wants or the goal that they tell me that they want. I care more about the lifestyle that you're willing to live until you accomplish it, because that's what it's going to take. So I had somebody ask me one time, they said, if I want to be your level of success, but way, way, way more successful, what do I need to do? Like, I can tell you what it's taken to get here. I'm not 100% sure because I'm not way, way, way more successful yet. But I said, let's just check in with what you value as a human, because if you value different things than I do, this journey is going to require different pieces for you than I. On a scale of 0 to 10, how important is it for you to be home every night for dinner? And this person said like 10 out of 10. Cool. You want to get your kids off the bus. You want to go to their sporting events, parent-teacher conferences, recitals, that type of stuff. Yeah, I'd love to be able to do that. Cool. With love, this ain't for you. This ain't for you. Not in the way that I do it. You would be miserable if you traded in all of the things you value for something that you think you value. But that's just going back to the self-awareness piece in the beginning that we talked about. So when you're setting goals, I think we just need to understand and just have a real conversation with ourselves. Is this actually constructive for what I value as a human being? If you value family time, having a job that requires a ton of travel probably ain't it, even if it pays the bills really nicely. If you value family more than you value money, that's not going to be quote unquote success for you.
Yeah. And then the other thing, I know a lot. Well, I don't know a lot of people. I believe we look at people's success and we have a false interpretation of what that success really is, how they got to it. And then you can tell me everything you did to get to the point that you're at, and I could follow it to the letter, and it probably won't turn out that way.
Yeah.
It won't turn out that way, right? Because one, we've come from different experiences. So you'll say, do this, do this, do this, do this. And I'll interpret what you say the way I interpret it based on how I've lived up to this point in my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's why you ever see people, you ever see movies or you see something, they say, do exactly what I tell you to do.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not. You can tell me some stuff and I'm going to interpret it based off of my experiences, my knowledge. And it's probably going to, go off on a different path every now and again, right? So it's really difficult to look at someone and say, I want to be you. I want to be like you, and then 5 times better, or whatever that person said.
I support it. Look, I no gatekeeping here. You want to be way better than me. I love it. I love that.
Yeah.
Just know that I'm wired a certain way. Lee's wired a certain way. I like working hard. I don't really care about working long hours. I've kind of dedicated my life in many ways to this. It's not going to be as much suffering for me as maybe it would be somebody else. And it might not be as constructive for somebody else as it might be for me. And I just think, to your point, when we see success, we see results. We don't see the process. That's all it is. Like, oh, that person's in really good shape. Well, the process of them getting there might be beyond what you're willing to currently do. And I just think it's important to note that.
And a good thing, I was just thinking about what you said too. That question is funny as well, because we suffer differently.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to climb Mount Everest. You know what I'm saying? But some people, that's joy, in the pain and the suffering, that's joy. For me, it's trauma. It's, it's too much. So, our definitions or what we are willing to put our bodies through, what we are willing to live, to your point, till we get to this level that we aspire to get to. I mean, they're all kind of different.
Yeah.
So
it's unique.
Bottom line. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, go try to be Kevin, just look at what he's doing. And I shouldn't say try to be Kevin, but just look at his accomplishments and understand that it's a process. If you're just starting off and you're looking at someone who's achieved, understand that you're not going to get there, and don't be upset. Don't beat yourself up if it's not going the way you think it should go right off the get. It's not. It didn't go right like that for them either. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, we're preaching. I dig it. So y'all done thousands. You've done thousands. Almost 3,000. But how many podcast episodes do you think you've done?
I track it every day. 3,000. I think it's like 3,200 as of today.
Wow. What's been to you? This is hard. That's a lot of episodes. You talked to a lot of people. You talked about a lot of things. What's one of the more powerful lessons that you've learned about mindset?
Your adversity can be your advantage if you have the proper mindset. In the beginning, Lee, and you're a host, in the beginning, somebody would come on the podcast as a guest, and they would just have this incredible story about overcoming adversity, trauma. And I would say to Alan, we're probably never going to hear a story like that again. And then next week, somebody had their own unique version of that same exact story. And we were thinking, what's the difference? What's the difference in somebody who was in foster care, put into a cage, who had to chase chickens in order to eat? And that is a real story based on somebody we talked to. And them somehow making it to the NFL and being successful. How did that happen? They have the attributes. Maybe they have the resources. They have the resilience. They have the mindset in order to take that adversity and turn it into an advantage. So from a mindset perspective, I think that's one of the most powerful things ever. Now, I'm not going to stand up here and preach that every single person can do that. I don't know. I think there's a unique level of circumstance. And one of the things we've realized is that people who have really high self-belief tend to climb through a lot of mud easier just because they believe they're capable of it. So that's a whole nother level. But yeah, in its simplest form, there are people who have somehow figured out how to turn their adversity into an advantage. And if we can learn from those lessons, I think we'll all be able to use our struggles as gasoline or fuel in the future. It's just a matter of locking down what actually made the difference.
Yeah. I know. I tell you what, I go through a lot of self-doubt. This is me being vulnerable, just me being open. And I have to fall back on experiences and things that I've gone through. And I think one of the bigger lessons in my life was the military. They just put you in these ridiculous situations, in training, and then you're in crazy situations in real life combat situations, right? So for me, just thinking about mindset, it's a daily thing. It's a constant, not fight, because some people it's an easier journey. Some people it just takes a little more effort. I'm one of those. It takes a little more effort. Like, I'll get through it. I'll be nervous about getting on here and talking to you. But when I get on here, I'm fine. I'll get nervous about public speaking. But when I get up there, I'm fine. Except for I'm bald-headed, so when I start sweating, you'll see it all coming down my face. You know what I mean? But what I'm trying to say is, and we'll talk, and I'm going to have you talk a little bit more about mindset, having that positive mindset, having that belief that you can overcome. Like, it's not always just there. It's a learned behavior, just like you learn to be, have self-doubt, from whoever or wherever, right, throughout your life's experiences. Having that positive mindset is a learned thing, and you have to go through it every day, because you're going to run into something. You're going to be scared, and you see a lot of these people who are super successful and they get out there. I mean, I love the documentaries that you see on TV now. You look at Michael Jackson, and he talks about how scared he is every time he gets up there, but he does it because he knows how to do it. But he's a super shy dude. You know what I mean? Or was, rest in peace. But it's crazy, and I love to hear those stories, because for me personally, and I believe a lot of people out there as well, you have a lot of self-doubt. but you know you can do it. You know damn well you sing your butt off, but you're scared to sing in front of people. All these examples, and you see these people, they get out and they find a way. That's just having that positive mindset, that belief that it's going to be okay, and then I can do what I need to do. Go ahead. What do you think?
I think the hard part is you need the reps.
You need the reps.
You need the reps, and you need the reps to ramp up. So one of the most common mistakes we see with people is they'll say, okay, I want to be a speaker. It's like, awesome. I'd love that for you. I'd love to help you figure out how to be a speaker. You need to start speaking into your cell phone or into the mirror or just in a dark room somewhere. We don't even need to think about talking to an audience yet. That might be level 8 of the mountain for you. Let's work on level 1 through 7 first. So I think to your point, what happens for a lot of people is they say, I'd really like to do, let's just say speaking, because you and I are talking about that and we both speak. They'll think to themselves, okay, I have to go get in front of a crowd. No. You should probably spend a year like talking into your cell phone or podcasting or doing YouTube videos or talking in front of your family or talking in front of your friends. Because what that helps you do is it helps you build that positive mindset and it helps you build that momentum. And this is what happens. When you go to do the thing, if you're somebody like me, and by the sounds of it, Lee, you have this as well, you get that voice saying like, I don't know if you can really do this. You have recent, irrelevant proof that disproves that limiting belief. So, Lee, you did a podcast yesterday. You felt a little iffy. Then you logged on. And once you got there, it felt good. Cool. Now you have that dialogue with yourself before you interview me or before we have this conversation. Yesterday, I felt the same way. I did it. I felt better. And then I was proud of myself after. Boom. Recent proof, relevant proof. And then as you do that longer, you can raise the stakes, you can raise the stakes, you can raise the stakes. But to the point that we were talking about before, that level of growth and the level of raising the stakes is completely personal to you. At this point, yes, I've done 3,000 some odd episodes. This is way easier than it was in the beginning. But if I was to go do something completely new, I would be starting over, but I think it would just speed up faster. But I would still need the most recent and relevant proof. That's why it's so important to make sure that when you say you're going to do something, you go do it, because then you have recent and relevant proof that you can keep those small promises to yourself.
Good info.
I appreciate that.
I take all of this stuff, man. That's why I love doing podcasts, because you get different perspectives. You get different insights. I get different perspectives and different insights, right? And hopefully the listeners as well out there are taking some of this stuff, because, these are things that we all go through. And that's what I love having these conversations. We all go through it and we feel super weird. Like, am I all alone in this? And you're not.
No,
you're not.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So with that being said, what's something that you wish you'd known earlier that would have even more so accelerated your personal growth?
It's not about becoming somebody different. It's about becoming the best version of you. I think a lot of us go into growth from a place of scarcity and lack, when in reality, what we want to do is, yes, we want to mitigate our weaknesses, but we want to magnify the strengths. We want to magnify and multiply the personality. There are things that you are just naturally better at than other people. Let's magnify that. Let's multiply that. And yeah, let's mitigate the weaknesses. I think for a lot of us, and this was my struggle, I assumed growth meant changing everything about myself.
Yeah.
That's not the case. Yes, we want to take some positive things that other people are doing and adopt those into our own behavior and identity, but you don't have to become a different person. You have to work on evolving yourself to the ideal version of you, whatever that means. And I think if I knew that sooner, I probably would have spent less time trying to be like other people instead of bringing that behavior into me, into my essence, into my personality, into my identity.
I don't have it. It's actually downstairs at my desk. But this book, Strength Finders, that's a great book.
I've never read it.
And
I've never read it. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, Strength Finders. Well, it's just a little blurb, but what it does is it asks you a bunch of questions, and what it's doing is telling you what your strengths are, and they have 34 strengths in order, right? And it tells you what your strengths are. And they say most people look to strengthen their weaknesses, right? But when you're in these different types of leadership or work or relationships or whatever, just more on self-awareness, understanding who you are, understand what your strengths are. You can lead with those strengths. You can continue to work on the ones that are less strong, right? But you lead with those strengths. And so you take this so you understand who you are, so you don't have to go and try to reinvent the wheel. You are who you are, right? At the core. And so when you start changing, then you start losing yourself and your values get all out of whack and, all these different things. And 20 years from now, you're looking back and like, who am I? Right. And that's probably where we're at right now, because you live in someone else's idea of who you're supposed to be, or you're looking at somebody else. I'm looking at Kevin like, I want to be like this guy. Like, why do I want to be like Kevin? You want to be who you are meant to be. Right. So it takes a deeper dive. And with that, you focus a lot on self-awareness. How does developing this trait unlock positive, let's bring it back, positive mindset?
I love it. Because I think when you become more self-aware, you become more understanding of what you're capable of. And that helps your mindset. So if one of the best examples of this for me, I was at the gym with two of my really good friends. And when I'm at the gym, I feel really good. That's one of the things that helps my self-esteem a ton. I've been exercising a lot, very confident in the gym. I put a lot of hours there. So I felt 10 out of 10 when I was working out. We finished the workout and then we started talking about business. And I went from like a 10 out of 10 confidence to like a 2 out of 10 confidence. And internally, I started to villainize the people I was with. Oh, they're arrogant. Why are they talking like that? Why do they always want to talk about business? It was just belief after belief after belief after belief. I slowed myself down. I tried to practice some self-awareness. And I said, is this a me problem or is this a them problem? This is a me problem. This is a me issue. I'm the one who's insecure. They're not saying anything bad. This is me. This is something I'm struggling with. Instead of blowing up my relationships with those people, saying you guys are terrible, I went inward, and luckily I had the self-awareness to say, no, this is a me thing and this is something I can work on. I think it puts you back in the driver's seat to understand that a lot of what you're dealing with right now, you're capable of changing, or you're capable of improving, or you're capable of working through. And I think that's one of the reasons self-awareness it's so valuable, because it's like anything else. If you understand your car, you can work on the car. If you understand your phone, if you understand technology, if you know your cell phone better than you know yourself, that's a really dangerous place to be, because you're not really in control of the outcome. So simplest answer, Lee, because I'll go off on a freaking tangent for an hour. Simplest answer is the things that we are the most aware of, we have the most control over. And I can't imagine a more powerful thing to have control over than yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Great answer.
I appreciate that.
Great answer. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I tell you what, it's one of those lessons. I like saying, I tell you what, I need to work on it. I need to work on that.
I love it. I love it.
I'm about to say something. I tell you what, being self-aware it really takes some effort. It really takes, just, you said it good, slowing your mind down. Because your mind is going to do whatever it takes to make you feel comfortable in your position. This is real talk. It's going to tell you that if it's something that you're uncomfortable with, it's everybody else's fault while you're uncomfortable. If you don't pay attention to your mind talk, and you're going to live in this denial for a period of time, eventually it'll come to a head. I like to talk about mind talk, and maybe that's not the right word, but just the things that your mind tells you. It's trying to save you. It's trying to save you from this saber-toothed tiger that's going to attack you, right? But we don't have saber-toothed tigers anymore. We don't have these dangers anymore, but it's still prevalent in our mind, because now it's saving your ego, it's saving your feelings, it's saving your, whatever. And it's going to take you in the wrong direction of growth, of self-improvement, if you aren't mindful of what it is telling you. Trust me, it does it all the time. All the time.
Mhm.
And you just need to be aware of it. It's doing it. You gave a good point. You gave a good one. Like, why are they so arrogant? Why are they so, you know?
Yeah.
And that's because you didn't feel good about you. Had nothing to do with them.
Right.
Just your acumen dealing with the business that they were talking about, you know? And that happened, you know, it happens all the time. So the only reason why I'm belaying this and I'm talking a little slower is because I want people to hear this. Your mind is talking to you constantly. What's that movie, that cartoon movie? Inside Out.
Inside Out, yes.
Great movie.
Mhm.
Like, that's your mind talking to you.
Yeah, it's a really good movie.
Yeah, it's either going to give you some positive stuff to get you going. Actually, it gives you everything you need. It just depends on what you listen to.
Yes.
So, all right, man, I love this conversation. I really do.
Same, brother. Same.
How important to you? I'm always vulnerable. You know, I come on here and I'll tell you my flaws. Yeah, not all of them, because I don't know you like that. But I'll tell you some of my flaws, whatever we're talking about. But how important is vulnerability in the process of self-improvement, and how did you embrace it to change your life specifically?
It is super important because you essentially, well, I'm going to go on a little tangent, but I'll make it quick. I'll make it as quick as I can.
Oh, yeah.
Vulnerability is different for every person. So for some people, vulnerability is looking at what they're not good at. For other people, believe it or not, vulnerability is them looking at what they are really, really good at. Because I think at the end of the day, we're afraid to share the stuff that puts us on our own little island. If you're really good at something and you've been villainized your whole life for being really good or really smart or really good looking, you're not going to want to share how great you are. On the other end, like for me, my vulnerability is sharing that I don't feel smart enough. I don't feel good enough. That's always been my vulnerability because that's like my deepest pain. So one, having the courage to admit the vulnerability makes you then self-aware of that vulnerability. And then you can go to work on what that is. That's one. And part two, you're never going to admit a vulnerability to someone if you haven't admitted it to yourself yet. It's not going to work like that. I'm very similar to you, Lee, where when I got into personal development and self-improvement, I would look at the people who I was trying to learn from, and I always would say, I don't think you understand what it's like to be me. I want to be vulnerable because I don't want anybody to think I have it all figured out. I don't want anybody to think that I don't have bad days. I have bad days. Some days where I make giant mistakes where I think it's the end of the world. I mean, that happens way more often than I wish it did. But me being vulnerable is me sharing that and saying, look, I know maybe I look dialed in or whatever. I don't know. I'm not as much as you think in some ways. And then maybe I probably am way more in other ways. But it really depends on what our relationship with that is. So yeah, I think we have to admit what's true in order to change what's true. And the admittance factor of that is saying, all right, I'm going to be vulnerable with myself and I'm going to take a real look in the mirror, whether that's the real mirror for our physical self or the proverbial mirror of whatever it is. And I'm going to sit with that feedback, going back to what we talked about earlier. Now that I have the real actual feedback, let me work on that. But we can't work on what's true until we admit what's true. And I think that's being vulnerable at its simplest form.
Yeah. All right. So look, you went in, you jumped from job to job and did all this crap when you were young. You made all kind of ridiculous money, dated models, lost models, right? And then you settled in and you said, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. From your experience, what's the most powerful bit of advice that you'd offer to someone starting their entrepreneurial journey?
Man, make sure that you have a circle of people around you that understand what you're doing. That would be one, because yeah, I know you're starting your own thing and you have, and this is going to be in quotes for those just listening, all the time to yourself. You do not have all the time to yourself. You have none of the time to yourself. You have to dedicate it to the other pieces that need to move. That would be one. The other thing I would say is it's most likely going to take way longer than you think. So don't expect anything to happen in year 1 or year 2. If it does, awesome. That's a pleasant surprise. But strap in for 3 years and don't make any giant decisions until you've done this for a few years, because you don't know the momentum you're building. You don't know when things are going to pop and you're going to start to get results that you've been working for. So even the podcast space, they say give it 100 episodes before you make any decisions. Like, don't plan on being successful before 100 episodes. I think entrepreneurship is very similar. I think that's a really big piece of it. And then just to connect something we talked earlier about, figure out what your unique strengths are, figure out what your weaknesses are. And then if you can find someone to help you with the weaknesses, awesome, but focus on what your strengths are. If you're really good at sales, make sure you're in front of people selling. If you're really good at building stuff behind the scenes, make sure you're behind the scenes building the stuff that you're really good at. Try to magnify and multiply your strengths, because there's a lot of progress that can be made there. One of the benefits for us is we have 2 people. So I can be here with you, Lee, and Alan's behind the scenes building a system or something, right? So the strengths that I have are not necessarily strengths that he has, and vice versa. And I think that's one of the reasons we've been able to get to where we are, is because we have things that are really, they contemplate, or they, what's the word I'm looking for? Complement. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. They complement each other really, really well. So figuring that out by yourself, I think, is a very important thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I was thinking when you were talking, building that community. You know, it can be building a team at work. It can be building friends. It can be building family. You know, and if you deal with people, you start to see, oh, you do this, but you're really good at this, right? I suck at this, and then you leverage that, right, in a good way. So now it's a give and take. You know, you may be good at this thing, like you and Alan. You're good at this, and Alan's good at that, and I'll do this, you do that. And it works out, right? So I had a boss, man. He was like, don't try to learn everything. You know, you don't have to. You just get you a good team and you leverage that.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's true. Because I was trying to learn how to code and, it's like, you don't have to. I do it. Or, you know what I mean? So it's pretty funny. Hey, have you ever worked with any or talked to any veterans, anybody in the military over your 3,000 episodes?
For sure. We've interviewed people that were veterans, and I've been on a lot of podcasts as a guest that were hosted by wonderful veterans. Okay.
So as a service member transitioning into civilian life, there's unique challenges of building that new, quote unquote, new mindset. What advice would you give someone navigating that transition to build confidence and maintain that consistency?
Oh, yeah. By definition, you are probably one of the more capable humans walking this planet because of the experience that you have, and you already have an incredibly strong mindset. Yeah. It might not feel like it, but your mindset is incredibly strong. I would say that one of the things that would be beneficial to focus on is, what is the purpose now? I can only imagine, Lee, and you could speak to this way better than I, but going from a career or being in the military, having a military career and feeling like that's the purpose, or there's a purpose there, to going back to civilian life and maybe feeling like there isn't a purpose, that's where I would focus. What is the new purpose in this new chapter of your life? And how do we make progress towards that? Because I think that right there is a little mindset shift of, I'm going from an old identity and an old purpose to a new identity and a new purpose. Yeah. I don't know which one comes first. I don't know if you can really adopt a new identity without a purpose or vice versa. So I don't know if I have, honestly, I don't know if I have a great answer, but that's probably the answer that I would give.
That's a good answer. The reason why I say that, I haven't done this yet, but I had experienced something, and I'll just share it really quick. I was working with a customer, and I told you we were in electrical distribution, and we were in a meeting, and they shared a moment, right? So we provide these things, these tools, these things that they use to build stuff. And this one company that we work with, they build dental or medical type stuff. So things that you use to operate or dental things that you actually use doing surgery or implants, things like that. And we were sitting in this meeting and we got to the end and we just started talking. And one of the young ladies, she said, it made me really proud because I had dental surgery. And one of the things that we produce here was used during my dental surgery. And I was like, I know that sounds crazy. And then this other guy, he had some sort of heart issue and he followed up. Wow. One of the things that I recently had in the last couple months, an issue with my heart, I had to have surgery. And one of the things that we manufacture here at this company was used on my surgery. And so for me, that was almost like an aha, because to me, coming out of the military, now I'm a part of the sales process. I'm not a salesperson, but a part of a sales process. And it's just selling something, a widget here and there. But now seeing like real examples of how people are positively affected by the thing that I do for their company. So we provide these things that they use to build these things that they use to help people's lives, right? I was like, that's a different perspective. That's a good purpose, and that was just one example because the companies we deal with, they do all types of stuff that make the world, in some cases, a better place, just off of the things that they build.
Yeah.
So finding that purpose, because it doesn't always look purposeful. It just looks like you're just doing a thing. Especially for someone coming from the military where stakes are usually really, really high. That was another thing that I had to adjust to because this report that this customer is looking for is everything to them. I mean, it really wasn't anything to me. It's just some data, some number. Here you go.
Yeah.
I had that military, here's the data type. Remember Data from Star Trek?
Never seen it, Lee. I know. It's a shame.
Data is a cyborg or something like that, right? I think he was actually artificial intelligence. But the point is, he was just straightforward. Here, this is logical. This is what I had no emotion with it. And I had to learn that. I had a salesperson pull me to the side and he was like, look, these people, they expect you to be as passionate as they are about what's happening. This is their everything. So just show some emotion. So it's little things like that, right? Because not everyone, but when you go in the military, you experience these things. And when you come out, like this stuff just isn't that important. It is, but not really. It's not like life and death, and so having that mindset and understanding, and I have to have just a little bit. I have to show some empathy. I have to show some excitement or some scare, just to show that. Now, this is in the sales world, right? So it's not everything, but understanding your purpose, finding your purpose, I believe is a great bit of advice is what I wanted to say. You didn't think that was a good answer. I think it's an amazing answer.
I appreciate it. Well,
I said a lot of words to get there. Go ahead.
Even to your point, Lee, it's if it's not finding your new purpose, it's finding purpose in the things that you're doing. Right? Maybe your purpose is not to work at a certain company doing a certain thing, but if you can find purpose in, you know what, I'm going to make this person's life a little bit better today. And I'm going to feel really good about that. And if I do that every day, I feel like that's a pretty purposeful life. But to your point, I think it's redirecting and gaining new perspective. And I think that's a really good place to start. But again, easy for me to say, right? Easy for me to say.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I got a good question for you.
Please.
Okay. You're a little vulnerable.
Okay.
So I appreciate that. And I know you're going to be on this question as well. But lastly, what's your biggest fear today and how are you approaching it differently than you would have probably in the past?
Damn, Lee, I almost got out of here. Without getting there. I would say my biggest fear today is disappointing others, especially men. That is my biggest fear, for sure. My dad left. I think in my mind it was my fault, even though I was a baby and I had no control over it. So I think in my mind, when I disappoint people, especially men, it's bad. It creates abandonment. It creates judgment, whatever it is.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. what I will be doing, I'm in the process right now of looking for a therapist. So I went to therapy back in the day and then I stopped, and I'm excited to go back, and that will be one of the main focuses. So I would say what I'm doing differently now than what I would do in the past is I'm seeking out someone who I know knows more than I do about this, rather than saying, you know what, I'll figure this out on my own. There's a lot of things I can figure out on my own. I can figure out how to do an email sequence and blah, blah. Yes, cool. Something like this, I feel like the longer I wait, I don't want to say the worse it's going to get, but the slower the growth is going to accumulate. So yeah, I'm going right to the source to say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'd like to work on. And I'd love to have someone in my corner who can help me, because they're way ahead of me in that.
Yeah. 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 Seeking that help. I mean, whatever, mentorship, whatever that looks like for you, religious leaders or something like that. It's great advice. All they can do is, it's crazy that we don't do that a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That there was such a stigma for so long on things like that, because getting different perspectives, I talked about this earlier, all it does is make you, to my point, better. Now, you didn't watch a lot of movies, so I'm going to say the Star Wars movie, right? Like in Star Wars, you had Luke Skywalker, well, you had the Force, you had the Jedis, and then you had the Sith. And so the Jedis, they learned all of this, positive power for the betterment of man for the most part. But the Sith were the bad guys, right? And they believed you have to embrace the positive and the negative. So the good force and the dark force to become the most powerful, right? But in doing so, you kind of corrupt yourself because that part sifts in. And I bring all of that in because there is that danger, right? I believe it's good to have perspective. When I went over to Iraq, I got a different perspective. When I went to Japan, I got a different perspective. I understood now that they are not the images that I see on TV or in movies. They are not the enemy. They are people. You know what I mean? They are people. And the majority of the things that we associate with humanity and stuff like that, we are all in agreement on it. You know what I mean? But we have these differences, right? And, we create whatever issues that we do based off of these differences. But my first duty station was Alaska. Until I went and I was able to broaden my experiences, I was able to reshape my mindset on different things. You're limited. You're super limited, and you swear you know everything. People who stay in one state, one city, one block, they know everything about that block. And they think that block represents the world. But it really doesn't, right? So the bottom line is, I like to use a lot of words. I'm sorry, Kevin.
I love it. I just had a moment where I was like, Lee, when you write your book, you better be the person who does the audiobook. If somebody else is reading that audiobook, that is unacceptable in my opinion. Just so you know.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
Of course.
I got a little nasally going on right now.
It's all
but
good.
I read something, and it was like, most people don't like their voice because they believe it's nasally, and you can't really hear it, but everyone has a little nasally in it. It was something they were talking about. So anyway, we sound different than what we think we sound.
We do, yeah. I think it's the way it vibrates in your skull.
Yeah,
I think that's what it is, but you have a wonderful reading voice, so yes, I look forward to listening to the audiobook.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Kevin.
You're very welcome.
You got me blushing right now.
I got you.
Feeling good. All right. Hey, is there anything that I missed that you think is essential for our listeners to know about building a positive mindset, or anything?
There's a drastic difference between self-belief and self-worth. So self-belief is, I believe I can accomplish something in the external world. Self-worth is, I feel like I'm actually worthy of owning the beautiful success that I have created. So just because you believe you can do something does not necessarily mean your mindset is where it needs to be. So yeah, I would say I would throw that out there just as a teaser for maybe a future conversation we have, or a future conversation with one of your other amazing guests.
Man, I love it. All right, Kevin, how can the listeners connect with you and learn more about your work at Next Level University?
I appreciate that very much. Search Next Level University. We will come up. We're on all the podcast platforms. We're on YouTube. The website is nextleveluniverse.com. And then if you need anything from me, questions, comments, concerns, whatever it is, my email is kevin@nextleveluniverse.com. I do my own emails, so I would love to help in any way I can.
Love it. I love when you get to the source. So if you want to talk to Kevin, you're going to get him. He just gave you the email.
I got
so
you. I got you.
I appreciate that, Kevin.
Of course.
Hey, and thank you so much for sharing your story and your insights today. Your journey of overcoming adversity and building a resilient, positive mindset is truly inspired, and it's truly needed, right, to hear. And thank you.
I thank you, Lee. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you, brother.
My man. Hey, and to the listeners, if you found value in Kevin's story, don't forget to subscribe to Hindsight the Podcast and stay tuned for more episodes filled with powerful lessons on personal growth and success. And keep challenging yourself. And remember, the next level is always within reach. I'll talk to you soon. Hey, thanks for joining me here on Hindsight the Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I did. And while I have you here, why don't you take your mouse, go over and click on that subscribe button. No, not right there. Over to the right. Down, right there. Boom. Thank you. Now, thank you for subscribing to Hindsight the Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones.